Hey Bodacious Beast, welcome back to my channel. I have got a really tough video that I'm going to be doing today. I am on my big old charter bus. I found a little bit better seat that I'm sitting closer to the back of. But today we're going to talk about how we can better support those that are struggling with a mental illness. This is really important that we start taking a deeper look into mental health as we're coming out of this lockdown, as we're trying to get back into the role of society and go out and socialize with normal people. There's a lot of people that have been left behind. This is pretty close to the remnants of how what was left over after the Great Depression, and then now we're ended up with what's left over of lockdown. And the thing I'm really talking about is we need to figure out how to be able to help support these people. I've been around lots of people that have struggled with mental health. I've been around a lot of people that have gone homeless because of mental health, and I have seen it get worse. Because the fact is, when somebody has a mental health issue and they've tried to work on it, and before the lockdown they had their avenues of being able to go and work on their mental health issues and live a functionable life. So I'm going to bring on a little bit of an example. There was a friend of mine, his name is Bill, and he struggled with inner voices inside of his head. I can't pronounce the name of the mental health. It's something that starts with an S. But he struggled with that a lot. He struggled with the voices inside of his head, and he fought so hard to be able to keep functioning as normal as he possibly could. He got himself off of it, and most of that happened was once he got off of drugs. This started coming it started coming at him quite a bit. And so once I met him, he was out panhandling one day and he was very hungry. And, I turned around and bought him a burger, and I said, hey, can I just ask you a little bit? I'm trying to learn here. Even though I'm on the streets myself, I'm in a homeless shelter. That was back when I was in Boston. And he said, sure, yeah, he said, I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Well, he's still talking to himself. He's talking to his, the other voices. And I said, so how did all this happen? And he said, well, I lost my brother, and I lost my desire to work. My brother was basically my rock. He said, I've been struggling with this all my life, but, my brother and I went out and did things, and we did things together, and we worked in the construction field together, and he said he had a wife and 2 kids, and once his brother died, he lost his cornerstone. And he said he's never been able to get out of it. He's never been able to get away from it. And I said, well, so how can we help? And he said, personally, I really don't know. And I said, can we try something? And he said, sure. So I said, well, Friday night, I'm planning on staying out. I said, I'm going to have to be stuck outdoors all night, but because I'm in the shelter. And I said, why don't you go to karaoke with me? He said, karaoke? I said, yeah, that's when you listen to the music and you sing in the microphone and you look like a fool in front of everybody else, and everybody else cheers and applauds you while you're doing it. So he went and he thought about it, and I said, okay. So he went down to the pub, and I said, no, you don't even have to drink beer. Just buy yourself a couple sodas. So he bought a couple sodas, and I bought him another burger, and he went up and he tried karaoke with some of the songs that he absolutely loved. And then he started talking to people. And he looked like he was just like every normal person on the street. I mean, he was talking to people and socializing and laughing, and I guess for 1 minute he ended up with some peace. So I went back to work, and I've been working day labor, and all of a sudden I see him again. And I said, so how's everything going? He said, well, he said, I'm part of the karaoke club now. He said, I've been doing really good there. And he said, I've also been working on a work group. And I'm probably going to get started in work soon. Well, about 2 years later, I got myself out of the shelter, and I got myself an apartment down, up in Revere Beach. And about 2 or 3 years later, I was down at the airport, and all of a sudden I saw Bill. He was returning a rental car. I said, Bill? He said, oh, hi, Scott. And I said, wow, it's been a long time. He said, I don't even recognize you. He said, yeah. He said, just for that one time that you sat down with me and you worked with me and you were my friend for 2 or 3 months, just to give me somebody to talk to and give me some kind of variety. And he said, I created my own rock, and he said, I got my mental health issues taken care of. I went and talked to a behavioral counselor up at the shelter. Like you said, they might be able to help, and they helped me. And he said, I worked really, really hard. I said, you still going to tell your brother about it? He said, yeah. He said, I go up every 2 weeks, and I made it a goal that I can tell him a good story. And so that's a little bit of a point that if we take mental health seriously and help those that can be helped. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that can't be helped, and there's a lot of people that don't want to be helped. But if we address those that want help, that's a little bit of a start. If we address those that want to help, and I mean, I've seen people that are in such dire straits of mental illness that they'll flop on the street and flop on the pavement in the middle of the street and roll around like a dead fish while everybody in cars drive by and stares. When they don't realize that they're struggling and they don't have anybody. They become more and more invisible to society. And once they get to a point where they're so invisible, that's it. And it's happening in the workforce too. It's when I was driving for public transportation, I felt myself become more and more invisible. People stopped even acknowledging my existence in the driver's seat. I would say good morning and they'd just walk right past me. The transit agency says don't say anything about fares. So we're not allowed to talk about fares. So the human interaction stops. And we start becoming invisible. And I would say there's probably about 5 stages of human invisibility. And the first stage of human invisibility is you're just ignoring some of the, it's a sleazeball in a bar or somebody acting foolish. You just ignore them. And then it keeps going down, and then to where the level of a bus driver is where you don't even acknowledge their existence, you just walk past them. So now they became invisible. And then, well, sure enough, it becomes a problem. So the thing is, we need to address this. We need to give people a place to go. I've worked with several people and I've given them multiple avenues and multiple places where they can be able to go. It's not necessarily, oh, you just got to go to church and they'll help you. I've helped one guy. He was having such a hard time. He was struggling with alcohol. His wife divorced him. He lost his job. And he was just mostly alcohol. He wasn't really into drugs. He didn't even smoke. And of course he was on the streets and mental health was taking a toll at him. I mean, once you're on Skid Row, mental health becomes your demon. Everybody has a little bit of mental health, some kind of a mental health issue, but we can keep it at bay. But when you don't have any avenue to keep it at bay, mental health becomes your best friend. Those mental health demons become your best friend. So the second story is I had another friend of mine. Well, I actually had two of them. Two of them were alcoholics. One of them drank himself to death. He finally was found frozen in Boston in a snowbank right after a big blizzard of April 1st. And he had 2 big jugs of vodka in his hand, and he basically drank himself to death. He was the most brilliant guy you would have ever met. And I still think about him to this day. So there was another one. His name was Fred, and he was a severe alcoholic. And he hated losing his friend. He drank with Dennis all the time. And I said, hey Fred, I said, I have a friend of mine that has a gym. Wouldn't you mind going and working there? I said, you just need some general stuff and he can give you a paycheck. Just try it 2 or 3 days a week. So Fred went in and he did it. And, well, he got into his alcohol and then he went back. I think he did it about 6 times. He quit and then he'd come back and then he'd quit and then he'd come back. Or he'd work long enough to have a paycheck enough for him to get drunk off of it. And then the 7th time he went in and he was cleaning the floor. And there was a guy that was working out and asked him to spot. And he was scared to spot because he didn't want to hurt the guy. He said, no, just spot. I just need just a little bit of leverage so I can be able to get it up. So he's turned around and he spotted and they started talking. And after a while, Fred started showing up every day because he kept trying to tell him milestones that he was making. Because this guy that was working out was giving Fred his milestones as he was making them. And I just got an email from Fred a few weeks ago that he hasn't touched a drop of alcohol in the last 20 years. He was my age and heading 6 feet under. So basically, human companionship is probably the best key for mental health. Not throwing a tent and a sleeping bag at a homeless person. That creates more problems than you can dream of. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think there's a mental health crisis going on in the U.S.? Let me know in the comment section below. I mean, I'd like to hear your story. Do you have any issues struggling with mental health? Let me know. And while you're at it, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss another video. And most of all, keep on rocking.